Let's take a look at using some of the Archive Shuttle log files. In this demo, I'll take you through exporting data from Enterprise Vault and ingesting the data into PST files. We start by looking at the mapping screen, and here we have the archive that we want to migrate to PST. Let's launch the mapping wizard by clicking on Add Mappings and choose the options that migrate the archive to PST. We click on PST, then Normal, then choose my PST link. I'll then choose my migration workflow that I created earlier. What this does is perform a final delta sync, closes any remaining PST files, and moves the finished PST files to the PST output path. I don't want to filter, as I want all of the data to be pushed out to the PST file. The file name policy will be ownerless. We're going to enable this for right now. Leave the default priority, and we will end up on the summary screen. When we click Confirm, we'll get confirmation that the mapping was created, and the migration will begin. We'll now take a look at the log files to look at the process of the migration. We've loaded the log files into Beartail, which you can find on most of the servers. Because this is a new mapping, the metadata needs to be collected first for all of the items. This is what we see here. We chose the archive with a reasonable amount of items in it. This means it splits into multiple pages. Here you can see some information about the process, including the name of the archive and information that we're collecting all of the metadata for the archive. It splits into multiple pages so it can be processed easily by the collection module and passed into the Archive Shuttle core. The data then starts being transmitted back to the core in sections, and metadata is written into the item database by the core. After that starts, we can see the export module is now eligible to receive work items, as now there is data in the item database for all of those items that have been collected so far. After a minute or so, we should be able to see the export has started. As we can see here, the EV module for the server has started to receive work items for exporting of the archive that we've just exported the metadata from. So if you can picture that we've just mapped 1,000 archives, then the collection of those archives takes a little bit of time. But as soon as the first of those archives have had the metadata collected, then the export module is likely to receive commands like we see here. We can see that the command received was the export archive command, as well as which archive is going to be processed. This is all with logging at the info level, which provides you with quite a lot of data. Something we see in most other client log files is these types of statistics about how many items have been exported, as well as the CPU load, the memory load, and disk space of the machine running the module. This can take a short moment to pick up speed. We can have a look at that on the progress and performance screen. Here we'll see the collection has been completed and the number of items that have been collected. We can see that the exported items counter has started to increase, and we can see the speedos of the items beginning to increase. Going back to the log files, we can see that the exports are still in process, and there is a marker of the number of items that have been exported. In this case, it's because we're exporting one archive, and we know the number of items are all from that one archive. If you are exporting hundreds of archives, for example, you will still see this data as it's the running count of items that have been exported since the module started. Something useful which you may also see is the amount of time it took to export the previous 1,000 items. That gives you another indicator of the module increasing speed, as the number of milliseconds are seen here should start to decrease as more and more items become eligible to be exported. In the background, the module is still exporting the items, writing them to the disk, and sending metadata about the export process back to the Archive Shuttle core. As you'll see here, we have a different amount of commands in the queue on separate lines. As these go down, the module will ask for more work items to be queued. As the items are exported and the metadata is sent to the Archive Shuttle core, and the core receiving information that the items were successfully exported, the core will then start preparing the import commands. We'll now go to the native format import module. You can see important information for your import module as highlighted in green. Here you can see PST files being created, including the names of those PSTs at intervals, and see the free space being checked on the PST output path. This will continue for some time, with the exports and imports happening in the background. Let's go on the Stage 1 screen and see the previous mapping that we've been working on. You can see this particular mapping that we've created. I chose this particular archive to export because we knew that it would split into more than one PST file, because by default PST will grow to about 2 gigabytes in size, and this archive is around 3 gigabytes in size. You can see the migration process on the Stage 1 screen, and because multiple PST files have been routed by the Archive Shuttle core, you can see the status of the PSTs. We have 77,379 items in the first file, and 53,873 items in the second file. Now you can see the overall progress of the mapping here, with 12% progress in export and 2% progress in import. The information that you get is delayed because the module has to do the processing work and transfer the results to the core, and the core has to process and update statistics before the Stage 1 screen is updated. One other thing we can see here is the PST file name, which may be needed for troubleshooting. Here is an updated screen around 40 minutes later, and as you can see, the data is now being exported for the second PST file, and the export has been completed for the first PST file. So, what we've seen is after we've mapped the archive that we wanted to migrate, we saw the EV collector in this case, which is the source metadata collector. The source was an Enterprise Vault archive, and it went and collected all of the metadata about the items that are in scope for that mapping to be migrated. After the collection happened, we saw that the Archive Shuttle core told the EV export module to start exporting items for that particular archive, and saw the data started to be written out to the staging area. We see other commands, we see performance in the log file, and we see items still being exported. Soon after the export started, we knew that the native format import module started importing data into the PST files. Even with log level set to info in this example, we see some useful information about what's actually happening during this process, and if there are an issue or an error, that can be seen in the log files. I hope that this proves useful in examining the flow of this particular type of migration.